Hi, y'all, and welcome to tonight's premiere. Michelle Troconis is speaking out from her prison cell. She penned a two-page letter to the editor of the Hearst, Connecticut media group, and she was not apologetic. Far from it. She says she's innocent. You are going to want to see this letter. Today, we're going to take a look actually at three letters. Two of them are brand new. The first is Michelle's letter from prison. Why is she writing from prison? Is she giving us any more information? And is it going to help her? The second is Fotis's unaliving note and what he says about whether Michelle Troconis was involved in the disappearance of Jennifer Dulos. The third is a statement from Michelle's family. Michelle and her family are trying something completely different for their case, an end run around the court straight to the public. Will it work? First, a super quick recap of the case. Jennifer and Fotis Dulos and their children lived together in Farmington, Connecticut, just outside Hartford. Jennifer and Fotis split up. She took their 5 kids and moved an hour south to New Canaan, Connecticut. Fotis stayed in Farmington. Not long after Jennifer left, Fotis moved his girlfriend, Michelle Troconis, and her daughter into what had been the family home. Fotis and Jennifer began a long and brutal custody battle. Fotis had only supervised visitation, and his girlfriend, Michelle, she's the one writing the letters we're going to talk about, was not even allowed to be around the kids. Fotis and Jennifer Dulos were still locked in an epic custody battle on May 24th, 2019. That day started out as a rather unremarkable, ordinary day for Jennifer Dulos, the estranged wife. She drove her 5 kids to school, and then a neighbor's video camera captured Jennifer in her car headed back to her home afterwards. But that is when the story takes a very dark turn, because Jennifer Dulos was never seen again. Her car was found abandoned beside a park. On March 1st, Michelle was convicted by a Connecticut jury of conspiring to murder Jennifer Dulos, her boyfriend's estranged wife. 2 months later, this past May 31st, 2024, Michelle Troconis was sentenced to 20 years in prison, with the time to be suspended after she serves 14 and a half years. So the letter we're going to talk about today was written by Michelle from her current home in the York Correctional Institute in Niantic, Connecticut. It's ironic that she's speaking out now because she did not testify at trial. Her attorney did speak for her. He said she was innocent and, quote, she didn't know that Fotis was capable of doing something like this, close quote. Michelle barely even spoke at her own sentencing, although a host of family and friends did. Michelle Troconis is not changing her story in this letter, but she is changing her approach. She's reaching out to the public, hoping that swaying public opinion in her favor will somehow help her. But is it too little too late? Let's look at the letter and let's talk about that. Michelle's lawyer, John Schoenhorn, has confirmed to the Hearst Media Group that this letter really is authentically from Michelle. Let's get started reading the letter. Your influential voice, remember she's writing to the media, through the Connecticut Post offers a breath of hope during these difficult times I am going through. So she's telling us what her purpose is. Her purpose is that she wants this letter to go out to the public. She has a message she wants to give to the public. Social media, public opinion is extremely powerful. It was extremely powerful in Karen Read's case as an ally for her. Without social media attention on her case, Karen Read would have had a much different case with much less evidence. The problem for Michelle Troconis is that it's now really late in the game. She's already been tried. She's already been convicted. She's already been sentenced. So is it just too late? We're going to get to that in just a minute. Let's look at the second paragraph. I am writing to kindly bring to your attention the profound miscarriage of justice against me. My trial was live on Law and Crime, and it has been an extremely high-profile case in the state of Connecticut and nationwide, and it highlights the urgent need for justice. My case addresses the violation of the 6th, 5th, 14th Amendments of the U.S. Constitution, among other serious issues. So, strong language, profound miscarriage of justice, highlights the urgent need for justice. Very strong language. I want to take a quick detour into looking at the three constitutional amendments that Michelle Troconis mentions. First of all, the 6th Amendment. This is related to the right to a speedy and public trial, to an impartial jury, etc. I think the part she's referring to is the impartial jury. I think that because she refers later in the letter she wrote to the fact that she believes they were biased. Now, the 5th Amendment is well known. You take the 5th if you don't want to testify against yourself. And my guess is that what she's referring to is, nor shall any person be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. She was a witness against herself in this sense. She gave 3 interviews to the police, and those were played at trial. She had a lawyer sitting right beside her during those interviews, and the lawyer never objected. She answered the question. So it's going to be a tough argument for them that she was compelled to be a witness against herself and to argue that it was without due process of law. And then the 14th Amendment, if you go down toward the bottom, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. It could be the next part too. Nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. It's hard to know exactly what she means. She's probably pulling this from appellate briefs that she's reading. I assume that her attorney is drafting a brief and sharing copies of it back and forth with Michelle. And that may be where she's getting those references to the amendments. Let's keep reading her letter. The 3rd paragraph. My name is Michelle Troconis. I was born in Memphis, Tennessee, and I grew up in Caracas, Venezuela. I was wrongfully convicted and sentenced to 14.5 years in prison for a crime I didn't commit. Again, strong language, a crime I didn't commit. As I prepare to appeal the verdict, I am exploring every possible avenue to advocate for my innocence and ensure justice is served. So she sees this letter reaching out to the newspaper, to the public, as one avenue for advocating for her innocence. That's what she thinks she will do on appeal, and that's what she's doing in this letter. Now let's keep going with her 4th paragraph. I'm a devoted mother, and I have dedicated my life in helping others through my career of equine assistance therapy. Despite my unwavering commitment to my family and community, I have become an easy target in the aftermath of Jennifer Dulos' tragic disappearance in New Canaan, Connecticut in 2019, bearing the brunt of blame in the absence of the real perpetrator, her estranged husband, Fotis Dulos, who cowardly committed suicide in 2020 to avoid prosecution. So there's zero doubt about what she thinks now. She thinks Fotis did murder Jennifer Dulos. She's calling him a coward. She also says she's a target because he unalived himself and people want somebody to suffer for Fotis's crime. She says, I've become an easy target, bearing the brunt of blame in the absence of the real perpetrator. I think there's some truth to what she says there. With a case like this, there is a cry within the community from the victims for justice. And there can be a tendency to cast around for somebody to blame. That is exactly what the justice system is there to guard against. This is not about blame. It's not about finding a person who can take responsibility. It's about finding the truth and achieving actual justice with the person who actually committed the crime. Fotis talked about this as well in his letter. We're going to read that one next. Let's go on to the 2nd page of her letter. In the early stages of the investigation, I assisted police in their search for Jennifer and offer to continue aiding their efforts. I placed my faith in the American justice system only to be jailed by it. So she's feeling like she was wronged by the justice system. She's saying, I tried to help with the search for Jennifer. And it is fair to say she did offer that. She offered that when she did the interviews with the police. And I think 100% of us would agree that if she is innocent, she should not be in prison. We don't believe in imprisoning innocent people, but the problem is many people after the trial, even before the trial, believe that Michelle Troconis is guilty. The police think she's guilty. The jury thought that she was guilty. The irony of these interviews that she gave to the police is that she went into them insisting that she was innocent, which meant she had nothing to offer the police as a bargain. The police were willing to bargain, but only if she had information. They wanted to know how Jennifer was killed, and she said, I can't tell you that. They wanted to hear, how did Fotis do it? And she said, I don't know. And everybody wanted to know, where is Jennifer Dulos's body? And Michelle said, I have no idea. In the next paragraph, Michelle is going to attack pretty much everybody involved in the trial. The trial, which lasted 2 lengthy months and involved a biased jury exposed to aggressive media coverage against me, lacked substantial evidence. Prosecutors engaged in speculation and made claims unsupported by evidence. The trial judge precluded exculpatory evidence, including sealing the psychological report by Dr. Stephen Herman from Jennifer and Fotis's custody dispute, causing the trial to be infected with unfairness as to constitute due process violations. In this paragraph, she is saying the jury was biased. They were exposed to aggressive media coverage against me. I'm not really sure what evidence there is of this. Her lawyer was involved in jury selection. The only truly bizarre thing was that they did select the jury months in advance, which I've never heard of doing before. And that gave the jury plenty of time to study up on the case if they wanted to do that, but they were not supposed to do that. And there's no evidence that I'm aware of that they did. She also says the prosecutors were engaged in speculation and made claims unsupported by evidence. I personally was very concerned about this during the trial. I was following it very closely, and I'm a lawyer. I was trying really hard to get it right for y'all and to understand what the evidence was. And in the end, I was just flatly confused about whether there was or was not blood on the floor of the garage inside Jennifer's vehicle, as well as on the vehicle and in the red Tacoma. The prosecution put on multiple witnesses who talked in tedious detail about collecting blood-like evidence or evidence that tested presumptively positive for blood. And then days later, another witness would come to explain that the final testing showed, well, never mind, that's not blood after all. In the early days of the trial, my impression was that there was blood absolutely everywhere. Because I was assuming that they would not be introducing this evidence unless it was relevant. And then I was frankly shocked to learn days later that it wasn't relevant, that they tested this and it wasn't blood. They argued, the prosecution did, that they needed all of that evidence in so they could show the jury that they had made every effort to do full investigation, that they had not cut corners. I do wish the defense had put on some charts and clarified these issues more for the jury. In my view, though, it was in fact confusing. I think it will be difficult to convey that to an appellate court. So we'll just see whether that creates a real bona fide issue on appeal. Now, I do want to take just a minute to talk about her comment objecting to the trial judge precluding exculpatory evidence. That means evidence that would support her not being guilty, evidence that would support her side of the case. And she writes, including sealing the psychological report of Dr. Stephen Herman from Jennifer and Fotis' custody dispute, causing the trial to be infected with unfairness as to constitute due process violations. So back to surprises here. Remember, this is exactly what the contempt charge is about. It's pretty brave to put that in, given that her contempt hearing is still coming up. That report was put under seal and was not permitted to be used at trial. Michelle was clearly frustrated with that ruling. I get it. I don't think it was the right ruling either. But the court and the prosecutors say that the way Michelle dealt with that, the way she dealt with her frustration, was she put the report on her computer screen right there in the middle of trial. She blew it up to gigantic type, hoping that the public would get a glimpse of what this report said. Instead, one of Jennifer Dulos' friends saw it, and Michelle is now facing contempt charges for trying to do an end run around the judge's order that said this document couldn't be used at trial. Let's go ahead and read paragraph 7. I am eager to share more details with you and explore avenues of advocacy and awareness. What happened to me could happen to any woman in America. So her goal, clearly, again, she's telling us, she wants people to know that this could happen to anybody, and she believes it has to do with her being taken in by a man who deceived her and who was a murderer and murdered his wife. Let's look at paragraph 8. I would like your voice to share my true story and help for my conviction to be reversed or exonerated so I can be reunited with my daughter and family. With heartfelt appreciation, Michelle Troconis. So her goal, as she states very overtly, is to get the public's attention, to get this letter. She believes she's innocent and she's trying to reach the public. We will talk about whether that will work in just a minute. I want to take first, though, a quick detour into Fotis's unaliving note, because Michelle Troconis is not the only one who says she didn't do it. Fotis said the same thing. Let's pull up his note next. I don't believe that we've ever reviewed it on the channel. It's very short, as you can see, one page. I'm going to go ahead and go through the whole thing. All, if you are reading this, I am no more. I refuse to spend even an hour more in jail for something I had nothing to do with. Enough is enough. If it takes my head to end this, so be it. This was right before a hearing he was supposed to have in the case against him. And one of the questions was whether he would be sent back to jail. So at this point, he's saying he's not willing to do that. He's also claiming he had nothing to do with Jennifer's disappearance. We'll keep going. This is the part about Michelle. I want it to be known that Michelle Troconis had nothing to do with Jennifer's disappearance, and neither did Kent Maywinnie. I asked the state to let them free of any such accusations. I also asked the state to stop harassing my friends, Andreas Tutsardis and Anna Curry. They are honorable people. So let's stop and pause and talk about that for just a minute. Andreas Tutsardis was the Greek friend who called him that morning of Jennifer's disappearance. Michelle answered. The prosecutors felt that whole thing was a planned setup to make it look like Fotis was at home. In fact, his phone was at his house, but the prosecution says he was down in New Canaan killing Jennifer Dulos. Later that same day, Andreas Tutsardis sent that explosive TikTok meme that we heard at trial about divorce and about women. Anna Curry was Fotis's new girlfriend, the one after Michelle and Fotis broke up. As far as Anna Curry, so far as I'm aware, prosecutors never thought she had anything at all to do with helping Fotis with the murder of Jennifer Dulos or the cover-up. So I'm really not sure what harassment there was of Anna Curry. It was sort of a nice gesture by Fotis saying, oh, Michelle had nothing to do with it, set her free. But it didn't help Michelle even one iota, and here's why. First of all, it didn't even come in at trial. The jury never knew about this note. I'm guessing the defense asked to use it, but the court said no. It's clearly self-serving. It's not like Fotis Dulos took responsibility in the letter. He didn't say, I'd like to confess I did it and I can't live with my grief over that. Instead, he said he didn't do it and Michelle didn't do it. And for that matter, if he did not do it, how does he know that Michelle did not do it? Because she admits they worked together that morning when Jennifer disappeared. Given that Fotis is not here, the state had no way to cross-examine him on what he said in this note. So it just never came in at trial. It never entered into what the jury was thinking. Please let my children know that I love them. I want to do anything to be with them, but unfortunately, we all have our limits. So he would do anything to be with them and yet won't. Let's keep reading. He says, the state will not rest until I rot in jail. My attorney can explain what happened with the bags on Albany Avenue. Everything else is a story fabricated by the law enforcement. Now, that's an especially interesting point because I personally would really like to know what the attorney was going to say. Fotis is talking about the Connecticut State Police finding video of Fotis Dulos driving through Hartford, Michelle also sitting in the car on the day that Jennifer disappeared. On the video, we can see Fotis get out of his truck, pull black plastic trash bags out of the back, and then throw them in several different random street trash cans in Hartford, Connecticut, which was a drive from where he lived. The Connecticut State Police moved super fast. They tracked the video down, and then they actually got to those trash cans before the trash pickup for the week. Inside the trash cans, they found black plastic trash bags that had a bloody bra and shirt and that tested positive for Jennifer Dulos's blood. So that's a lot of pressure on an attorney. Just how do you explain that? I suspect Fotis is referring to a story one of his attorneys floated in 2020. According to the attorney, an unknown person left Jennifer's bloody clothes on Fotis's doorstep on the day Jennifer disappeared. Apparently, it was an attempt, which was wildly successful, to frame Fotis for the disappearance of Jennifer Dulos. When Fotis saw those bloody clothes, he knew they were Jennifer's, even though no one yet knew that Jennifer was missing. He panicked and he drove them into Hartford and threw them out. So, okay, your vote. If you think the clothes were left on Fotis's doorstep by an unknown person, put a 1 in the chat or the comments. If you think Fotis got these clothes because he was involved in the murder of Jennifer, put a 2 in the chat or comments. If you think there's not enough evidence to know where they came from, put a 3 in the comments or chat. Fotis then ends the letter. I want to thank all my family and friends that stood by me this difficult time. Above all, Anna Curry, I am sorry for letting you down and not continuing the fight. Now we'll turn to the third letter, or really it's not technically a letter, it's a statement from Michelle Troconis' family. And they are in complete agreement with both Michelle Troconis and Fotis Dulos that Michelle did not do this, that she has been falsely accused and falsely convicted. Michelle Troconis is an innocent woman who has been unjustly sentenced to prison for crimes she did not commit. This situation represents a significant injustice. Tragically, Michelle is bearing the consequences of actions perpetrated by Fotis Dulos, who ultimately took his own life to avoid prosecution for his alleged crimes. So they are being very clear that they do not believe Michelle Troconis, their daughter and sister, had anything to do with what she's being charged with. They do believe Fotis Dulos did. They believe Fotis Dulos cowardly took his life because he wanted to get out of being prosecuted. Let's go to the second paragraph. Michelle was a victim of Fotis Dulos, a manipulative, controlling, and deceitful individual who fabricated a false reality for his gain. Fotis presented himself as a successful businessman undergoing an amicable divorce. He deceived Michelle into leaving her beautiful life and moving to Connecticut by falsely claiming that Jennifer Dulos supported his new relationship with Michelle. Fotis targeted Michelle, a successful, independent, kind, and caring single mother. Now, that's an interesting suggestion that Fotis told Michelle that Jennifer Dulos supported his relationship with her. There were a couple of facts that could support that. One, for example, there was about Fotis apparently having the idea that they could all live in the house together. One big happy family. Fotis, his girlfriend and her daughter, and his ex-wife and their kids. It doesn't take a psychology degree to say that's probably not going to work. That was not okay with Jennifer. She bought a separate house more than an hour's drive away south of where she had lived when she was with Fotis. Let's go on to the next paragraph. Michelle never wanted to replace Jennifer or live her life. She never claimed to want the responsibility of being the mother to 6 children. She was happy with her life as a single mother to her daughter. By March 2019, she was planning to move out of Connecticut at the end of the school year to leave Fotis peacefully and continue her life independently. During the trial, we heard testimony on both sides of that last point. Several witnesses testified that Michelle welcomed the idea of being a mom of 6. She was looking forward to it when Fotis got custody. Several witnesses said Fotis and Michelle had a great relationship, which would suggest they were staying together. On the other hand, there were some references to the idea that Michelle was planning to move out of Connecticut to Colorado, where her daughter could continue her training in snow skiing. We didn't get details on that move. For example, how sure was it? Why was it happening? When would it happen? Was it just for the ski season? Was it year round? We really didn't get answers on that. I want to step back and look at the big picture about the letter from Michelle Troconis and the statement from her family. Is this letter particularly, but also the statement from the family, going to help her? I personally strongly believe that lawyers need to rethink their typical approach, which is keeping everything confidential, everything under seal, say nothing before the case comes to a trial. I think lawyers have to understand that social media has incredible power to influence cases. I don't think we have to look any further than the Karen Read case, where protesters stood outside the courthouse as near as the judge would let them, picketing in favor of Karen Read, and where the federal government became involved. It investigated and located bombshell evidence from Trooper Proctor's text messages, which then influenced the entire course of the Karen Read case. Social media has extraordinary power, but Michelle Troconis has already had a full jury trial. She's already lost, and by now it is very, very late in the game. Her case is not over. It will be going up on appeal, but the public has a lot less meaningful impact at this point. The appellate judges may well be in another city within the state. They won't see witnesses. They almost surely will never see the defendant. They are removed from the community that would be influenced by the newspaper. And let me describe to you what an appellate argument looks like so you can understand. There is usually a dark paneled room. There is a raised platform at one end. The judges sit up on that behind a big bench. And so you can see them from about here, about what you can see of me right here. The attorneys sit at tables in front, kind of like in the jury room, and they come up to a platform right in the middle and speak to the judges. But the people in the room are usually other lawyers who are about to have the next argument. There aren't witnesses. The defendant isn't there, at least in most cases. Usually, it's just the lawyers talking to the judges. There will be several judges usually, and the lawyers will talk straight to them. This is not a situation that's like a trial court would be. It's a much quieter setting. To be truly effective, Michelle's approach, which I do believe is a sound one, and I believe makes a lot of sense in the day of social media, does need to happen earlier. This needed to happen immediately after she was arrested, immediately after Jennifer Dulos was murdered, even. In my opinion, it's possible it could help her, but it's very unlikely at this stage. But I do think this shows us something really important about the system as a whole and about where lawyers need to be putting their thought about a way they need to do things differently from this point forward. This is a video I prepared in advance. It's not a live stream, so I can't take questions. But if you have some, by all means, don't miss Wednesday's live stream at 7 p.m. Eastern. We're going to have a free-for-all Q&A. We're going to be talking Karen Read. We'll be answering questions. Most importantly, I'm going to be getting your thoughts through some polls. It's going to be a lot of fun. Plus, I hope to make a very big announcement on Wednesday. So don't miss Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. And if you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button on your way out and subscribe.